Okay, Chris Club Nut again, back for part two of our build here, very short. We have our steel head, we have our grip that we pulled off last video, and then we have a new shaft. This client's going to try something newer, stiffer, just as a for instance, because we may be getting new irons anyway. So I have the tip prepped already. I have it butt trimmed. It was very, very close to the length that he needed because they are extended. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to get this build going. First thing we need to do is put on the grip. Now that the grip's on, we can go ahead and get to epoxying everything else. When I put clubs together, I do like to put the grip on first because it lets me get a little more accurate swing weight. You know, estimating is good, but I like to have the grip on. I like to have the finished length so we can see what everything is. Now in this case, we're putting on a different shaft. It's not going to be exactly the same. It comes out shade heavier because not only do we not have the butt extension in the back, but it is a slightly heavier shaft that he wants to try out. So, you know, we could technically back weight it, try to make it the same as the other clubs, but that's kind of part of the experiment we're doing right now. Since the grip is on first, what we want to do is take a little punch or a screwdriver or an awl and just stick it in the back there. What that's going to do, it's going to open up the tape and it's going to allow air to pass through there so that when we put the head on, it doesn't create pressure and either pop the grip off a little bit or make the head move. Next thing we got to do, we got to put on the ferrule, we got to put on the head, so we need some epoxy. We're going to use some Brampton 5 and 15 quick here. Squeeze some of that out. Little mixing stick here, and we want to make sure we mix. Okay, we're going to hit a little bit on the shaft itself, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this ferrule on. Now this ferrule is very, very tight. Okay, what I like to do, hit it with a little bit of heat when I epoxy it on, and then that way it's going to help it stretch and glue down easier. Okay, so now we have that on. Next step is to get some epoxy inside the head. Make sure it's good and in there. And then we're going to coat the shaft with a nice, light, thin coat. Finally, we have our seasoning here, a little bit quick center over the garbage. Just enough to get around the shaft. What you might hear, you can hear those beads centering themselves on the shaft. Okay, so wasn't quite liberal enough with the epoxy. I want to make sure that when we get it in there, we can spin it around, fill all the holes, and get a nice bond in there that's good and centered. Okay. Have some epoxy clean here. You can use acetone, you can use whatever you want, but I do like to use this just because it's better for the ferrule. I'm not going to make a stripe in the ferrule just yet until we turn it. Clean off the epoxy. And I do like to use these clamps, even though it is very quick set. I like to clamp this so I can easily orient everything. We're going to make sure that the shaft lines up.
Go straight. This is left-handed. Okay, we're going to twist a little bit. And that clamp is going to hold everything good and solid and tight.
Just set it down here. Clean everything up. And he's going to come pick it up in maybe half an hour.